Well, Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to finally meet you face to face. I know we've chatted a little bit electronically in talking pre-roll. You've got
Yeah.
way more experience in this franchise space than I do, and so I'm eager for this episode just to glean some insight from you in that whole world, but hopefully for our audience as well, take some nuggets of information here or there, whether they're looking to get into franchising, they're already in it, but just business ownership and operating businesses in general. I think it'll be a good topic of discussion. So I'll turn it over to you, Thomas, if you'd like to just do a quick intro of yourself and your brands, and
Yeah.
we'll go forward from there.
Yeah. My name's Thomas Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of Home Run Franchises, an umbrella company that owns and operates the Up Closets custom closet brand, Dryer Vent Superheroes, and the Lighting Squad, 3 service-based franchises. We're right around 42, 43 units at the end of this year. So we've got a good run. I'm a 25-year veteran of the franchise industry. I've franchised 9 brands, have been a multi-unit owner in 5 different brands, and have been a supplier helping people grow franchise systems. So I love franchising. I'm a junkie when it comes to it.
Yeah. Well, for starters, Thomas, my first question would be, knowing kind of both sides of the fence is now franchisee and franchisor. What, maybe a loaded question here, but what's been your experience in terms of which side you've liked better since you've got so much experience in it? I mean, I'm sure there's positives and negatives to each, but now that you've got all your experience and you've done both, what position do you prefer to be in?
Well, they're different, so obviously franchisor is a special type of entrepreneur. Like not everybody is cut out to be a franchisor, and to be good at franchising, to be the person that franchises a brand. And franchising as a business model is a really smart way to grow a brand. If you don't have venture capital and you're not you're not super well capitalized, enough capital to open up 100 or 200 units of your own business, franchising is a more cost-effective way to scale and grow using relationships with other people. I also really like that the franchise model is the democratization of entrepreneurship in our country. It really is a much less risky way for somebody to start a business, to get into a business that has training and support and coaching and marketing systems. An independent junk operator, kind of like your business in the junk space, I'd have to figure out where to get trucks and dumpsters and how to do marketing, how to build a website, where to get insurance, and how to solve the labor problem, and how to get customers, and how the workflow was, and how to get rid of it. I'd spend half of my time building the business and developing systems. Whereas if I buy a junk franchise from you, I'm going to spend 90% of my time operating the business and making money, hopefully. And it's just really operating the business. So franchisees, as an effect of that, tend to outperform a mom and pop person by 30 or 40%, just surely because they're not burdened with all the systems development stuff. So I really like that about a business. On the downside, being a franchisee, and I've sold the ones I've had, franchising is an interesting business model. It's a relationship model. There's a lot of psychology, and we say franchising is a 2-metric business, meaning you have to happy franchisees who love what they do. They really have to like the business. They have to get up every day and go, this was a good decision. I really like what I do. I like how I make my customers happy. And they have to make money, but they have to be happy first. And so it's a cultural business. We say that franchising is the social media version of a business. It's a business where you're connected to people. It's not, if you wanted a boss, you would get a job. So when you ask a franchisee to do something as a franchisor, the answer is not no, but hell no. You have to the psychology of influencing people to make good decisions in their own businesses makes franchising a tough model for some people to learn. I was just at the Emerging Franchise Conference in New Orleans, which is a stellar conference. If you're thinking about franchising your business, owe it to yourself to go to that conference, which is every year. I think it's in Nashville next November. It was just in New Orleans last week. And franchising in the United States is having a moment right now. We're up to 6,000 or 7,000 franchise systems in North America and Canada and the US. And there's more than one new franchisor launching a day. Every day there's a new franchisor. And the learning is there to kind of understand how to grow and how to support and how to build a corporate team and how to build a culture that works for people. And I think it's an amazing thing. We have younger entrepreneurs getting into business. We have, millennials, Gen Zs, we have tons of Gen Xs. Like it really appeals to a wide range of people. It's just what Gary Vee calls franchising the greatest American business model for good reason. It's really
Yeah.
the killer model if it's done right. And unfortunately, it's not always done right, and there are lots of horror stories about it. But
Sure.
it's evolved quite a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I told my wife last night, now that I'm 6 years into growing Junk Raider, which is the first business I've ever started with a partner or anybody, I was like,
Yeah,
if I could do it over again, I would look at becoming a franchisee. I would go and buy into an existing brand because I've
a lot
I've been
easier.
through, yeah, everything you mentioned, right? Hiring people, insurance, where to get the trucks, all that stuff. Like it's been good for me to be in it, and I have no regrets. But if I were advising somebody younger than me, same age, older, whatever, who's never been a business owner, I'd be like, your chance of success is way more positive in the franchise space. I mean, 9 out of 10 businesses fail from a startup perspective if you're just going to go, try to do it on your own. I don't know what the statistics are if you go and buy into a franchise, but I have to imagine that they're way higher. And
Yeah,
so,
it's the opposite. It's
yeah,
there's all kinds of data around, but generally franchises, 90% or more franchises survive the 5 year mark. They don't all
yeah,
succeed, but they succeed at a much, much higher rate than independent businesses. They have high faith because
sure,
there's just more of a support system.
yeah,
Franchisees have it sit straight. One of the reasons to buy a franchise, and I tell every buyer that I talk to this is, one of the things you have to think about when you're going to start a business is what's your exit strategy.
yeah,
Like, how are you going to get out of this business in 5 or 10 or 20 years? Like, what are you trying to do with it? Where are you going? For any franchise, particularly a service business like Junk Raiders or Up Closets in my case, you can market that business for sale. You can put an ad on Biz by Sell. There are people looking for existing operating franchises all the time, and you can sell it often at a profit, and tends to be worth 3 or 4 times EBITDA, whatever your EBITDA is. And
yeah,
so you have an asset that has value because the next person can come in and I will train them or you will train them. Like
yeah,
there's longevity in the business. So that's much easier to sell a franchise than it is a owner operator business. Some of the wealthiest people in franchising are the big multi-unit operators that own multi-unit. They own hundreds of units, and
yeah,
that's a great play if you're an implementer. And but if you're a founder of a business and you like to build things and you like people, franchising can be really rewarding. The unit economics of a franchise system, they'll say like franchising is a great way to 10x you can have a crazy amount of EBITDA on a franchise system at scale, not at 10 or 20 units, but when you get to 500 units or 1,000 units,
yeah,
it'll have a 70% margin business. And if you have $2 million a month coming in on royalty revenue at 70% EBITDA, like there's a reason that private equity firms pay multiples of 15 and 20 and 25% time sometimes. It's
yeah,
ridiculous numbers, but you should get into franchising because you really like people and you're passionate about your business. And
yeah.
and the question I ask people when I'm talking to someone, they say, I really want it. Like if I met you and you were starting a junk franchise, and I would ask you, what business are you in? Like, how would you answer that question?
We're in the customer service business, right? We're
Well,
dealing with people.
yeah, you're in the answer is, and Fred DeLuca, the founder of Subway, is famous for talking about this subject. But you're not in the customer service. You're not in the junk business. If you're going to be a franchisor, you're in the franchise industry. Like that's what you do. You
Yeah,
recruit, train, support, coach, and exit people, and help them and love their businesses and help them generate profit margins. You have to master that whole business model, and it takes a lot of focus. There's different staff to it. It's a
yeah,
great model. It requires a different level of intellectual capital and learning. It's not the kind of thing that you can just scale by hiring an FSO. In fact, I would tell you not to work with an FSO today. FSO is jargon for a franchise sales organization.
yeah,
There are some very high profile FSOs in the market today that have got some unethical kind of development going. There's a lot of litigation around Premier Martial Arts and the Horsepower brands and some of those guys who are really hitting the
yeah,
wall hard and heavy. Because if I was an FSO and I sold 200 locations for you in a year or 18 months, and you've been franchising 5 or 6 years, you have no idea how to operate operations at that scale. Like
yeah.
that's what I'm doing, and I'm not sure I could pull that off.
Right.
So when you get over the 20, 30, 40 a year mark, you get into a whole nother set of problems. And so what's happened with a lot of those brands they've sold really quickly is they're falling apart, on that side. And so to the point that private equity firms are saying that they won't buy those brands. They're not valuable. There's too many. They don't hold up to the due diligence. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better to be what they call like a founder grown brand. Like the guy like you who takes junk traders and gets it to 50 or 100 locations by sheer effort and will and good strategy and good treating people right. That's the business that really people want to buy.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Well, let's get into the blueprint a little bit, Thomas.
Yeah.
From your angle, right? A lot of organic motive behind how you would grow a franchise brand. My biggest thing today in terms of, again, all the knowledge capture I've done over the last 10, 11 months is how do you generate leads? And I know that you can do it organically, optimize your website, SEO, have a great website, have franchise pages there. But how do you get traffic to it? I know you could do Google paid ads. You can do
let's talk about where deals come from in the industry. That's an important kind of 18% of all the deals done in franchising, and we do 15 to 25,000 deals a year in our industry in the U.S., not in Canada, just in the U.S. 18% of those come from broker networks / FSOs. That's generally a very small number of systems that maybe collectively is 20 or 30 units of systems. It's not like everybody does deals in brokers. You might do an odd one or two here and there, but the people who are really growing with brokers are a relatively small number. We do a lot of broker deals. I've worked really hard at that. The second kind of biggest curve, about 20% of the deals come from traditional franchise portals, things like Biz Buy Sell, Franchise Direct, Franchise Opportunities. Those are still today remain highly valuable sources of franchise leads. And people will tell you that they're not, but don't listen to them. More people do deals on portals than do with brokers. And the cost per deal with a broker is, how much is your franchise fee? Like, what's your franchise fee?
There's 3 different tiers based on population, but 19 grand, 39 grand, and 55 grand, just based on what city you're buying into.
Yeah. So that's interesting. 39,000 for me is the magic number for a franchise fee. I wouldn't go below 39. I don't like to go above 39.
Yeah.
I would have a $39,000 minimum franchise fee, and I would sell in units of 1 or 2 only. I do a 3-for-2 structure of mine. Like if you buy 2 $39,000 units of franchise territories, each one's about 300,000 people. I'll give you a third territory essentially for free. I don't make you pay 3 sets of royalties, but we just make the 2 bigger. And I find that that's a crazy, like people like that price point. But if let's say that you had a $39,000 fee and your broker commission was $15,000, the average broker commission in the country is 26. People say you got to pay these crazy high fees to brokers. You don't actually. You can do deals at the level I'm at. You have to be able to close deals, and you have to have validation, and you got to have earnings. There's things people look for. But let's say that you're paying $15,000 or $20,000 in commissions. So your cost per deal is $15,000 or $20,000 on each deal. On a portal, your cost per deal is $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000. It's a way more profitable deal for you as a franchisor, and you need that capital to grow the system. So that's say for just round numbers, that's 40%. The other 60% of the deals come organically through company website and related tactics and strategies. So that's building a really high performance recruitment website. That's my number one piece of advice is don't skimp on your website. Hire somebody who knows how to do that. People who build, and there's only a handful of companies that are good at that. The people who build recruitment websites they're not normal ad agencies. Like whoever built your consumer site is probably not the right person to build your development website, because a good recruitment website replicates a 45-minute conversation with you. It's all the deep answers to what does it cost and where do I get customers and how are you different than the other brands in the space and why should I get into this? How's the training and support? All those kind of questions. We call it a research funnel. Those websites are 12 to 15K on the low end and 30K on the high end. That's about the range for companies. You can look at any big brand and see kind of how they structure their recruiting websites. They're really designed differently than normal websites because it's a big ticket item And there are a lot of obstacles. Like you don't just casually buy a $200,000 or $300,000 business. A lot of thought goes into it. Once you have a website up and the website is built with storytelling content where you explain the way you would with a candidate. Like if I taped you for 45 minutes, like how do you answer people's questions and how do you overcome objections and what stories do you tell about the franchisees and that kind of thing. All that belongs on the website. Video is very important. So both long format, kind of what we call brand story video. Most people will spend 12 or 15K a year on video, just investing in video, and we call it development video, but it's like a brand story. Like you need a 2 or 3 minute video that explains what your business is and why, and emotional kind of reasons, like why is it a good brand? Like some sense of urgency, some energy, like some sound bites, a drone flying around showing what the dumpster looks like. It's got to make it come to life. That's like your elevator pitch today is what we call a brand story. You really have to have that. And I'm amazed at how so few people have those. And then some videos about like interviews with franchisees and with you guys on the story and kind of what the business is unique. I do a lot of short form video. I think that's really important too. Just if you see me on LinkedIn, the little vertical videos, the TikTok and Instagram reels and LinkedIn videos, I put those out every day. I think that's a really valuable lead generation tool today. A lot of companies are opting to do that on a retainer instead of PR. Like it's the new version of PR. If you have a stream of Gary Vee style videos where you're talking about why franchising and why junk raiders and making the business come to life, that's how people get to know you. Yeah. And it becomes an intimate relationship with you if you're interested and you have a website. And then you also have on TikTok or Instagram reels, a stream of content that shows your business, explains it. It's pictures of you guys doing jobs and talking about what it costs. That's a really popular thing. Then there's SEO work just organically, like thinking about what kind of language do people use when they're searching competitors. There's paid search, there's programmatic, there's all kind of retargeting and display ads. There's a whole bunch of strategies. Cornerstone blogs. We do a lot of podcasting, which is like we're doing now, but talking about the business itself. I use the Brand J company that I started. I don't run it today. A guy named Jack Monson runs that. He's amazing. And they're just really good at that cluster of things. So that's how I grow my brands. I like a 30% brokers, 30 to 40% organic. And then I do some talent recruiting, which I think is important for young franchisors. Find people who've been in your industry already who would make an amazing franchise owner. Or maybe they don't have all the capital they need, but find a creative way to structure a deal with them. I like a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I have a deal at the Palm Beach Atlantic University in Florida has a franchise program, and they graduate 20 or 30 kids a year from that program. I waive $30,000 of the $39,000 franchise fee for those students. I've recruited 4 of them already. I have another one coming on. They're amazing owners. That's like, there's no fees and there's no advertising or broker fees on that. I make a little money on it, but mostly it's just an incentive for aggressive, educated young buyers to get in and get them into business. But that's what I call talent recruiting. You might have a different version of that in your business that maybe you're getting people. And then I would spend time on figuring out who is the right franchisee. When you're new, you need friends and family and pioneers and people that kind of get in and test the business out. Like I always start, when I launch a new brand, I start with 5. I'll get 5 or 6 people that I know or friends or people that have worked for me in different companies. And I say, we're going to start this Lighting Squad brand and I'm going to give you a unit. I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to charge you a fee. I want you to pay royalties once it's up and running, but you're not going to have to pay for it. And then we'll kind of figure out the trucks and the equipment, and we're going to get together and we're just going to break everything. We're just going to go at it. We're going to figure the model out, prove it out, make sure it works. And if it's not for you, you can get out of it. But I start with a pioneer group. If you have a pioneer group after the first year, you got 5 royalty paying, validating actual franchisees. You can get to 25 units much faster with that. So I think one of the mistakes people make is they try to sell their first few franchises without really building and proving the model out. And that's just a tactical mistake. It causes people to fail.
Let's double click a little bit on the biz buy sell. That caught my attention because when I think of that, I think of a marketplace where folks go to purchase existing businesses, and I've seen franchise listings on there. what's your specific strategy there for a franchisor to prospect into those types of folks
Yeah,
looking at those
my
businesses?
portal strategy, you have to have a portal strategy. This is like with all of these things. Like you should be paying a retainer to a lead generation company that can help you on portals. I always have two portals going. So I'll have Biz by Sell going. Maybe that's $500 or $600 or $700 a month. It's not a lot because they don't have a ton of volume. And then I'll have like a franchise direct or franchise opportunities or franchise gator, maybe one of those. So I have two, and I try to get a couple of $1,000 spent and get 50 to 100 portal leads coming in. And you'll do 2 or 3, maybe 4 deals a year off of that if you're good at recruiting. It can do it. Biz by Sell is interesting. It's different than all the other ones. It's a reason it's the high performance one. It's owned by the company that owns LoopNet, the commercial lease real estate software, and they own the business for sale section, and they have the Biz by Sell franchise portal, and all three of those properties are intertwined. So when you're looking for a lease in Birmingham, Alabama, you'll see a link for businesses for sale in Birmingham, Alabama. When you go to the businesses for sales, so you start out on LoopNet, then you end up on the business for sale section. Then there are ads all throughout the feed for franchises that are recruiting in Birmingham. So you end up with a much higher quality lead because the people that are on that site are entrepreneurial, well capitalized. They're people like you or me that are just looking. So in fact, 80%, I think, of the ad spend on Biz by Sell comes from brokers. Almost every broker deal I've done this year originated as a Biz by Sell lead that a broker placed. Brokers place ads for brands with permission. Go to somebody and say, hey, I want to advertise up closets in 4 states, and they'll buy the states on Biz by Sell. That's how they get their leads. But you could do it directly yourself too.
What about the brands that you've got, Thomas? What attracted you to those specific service lines? I know it sounds like all of those are in the home service space, but why those specific lines instead of roofing?
Well, let's talk about the two main ones that we're growing, and they're different. So the first part is I have a sweet spot of a type of franchise that a business that I like to franchise. Angie's List / Home Advisor has a list of 465 categories of service businesses. And the truth is there can be 7 franchise brands for all 465 categories. If you and I starting brands and we could flesh out all of them, there'd be another 7,000 franchise systems in the US. And so I could do this till I'm 100 years old. I'm not going to make a scratch. I'm not going to make a scratch the surface. But if you have to make choices, I look at, I want a business without brick and mortar because that's really cost prohibitive today. And I've owned restaurants and coffee shops, and I've had businesses where I had 65 employees and $30,000 a month in rent, and it sucks. It's like really the fixed overhead, especially when COVID came, that really changed my mind on that altogether. But I like a home-based business, that a truck-operated business doesn't have to work out of the house because there's the fixed overhead is so low. Like you can have dips up and down in the business. You're not going to lose your house or go out of business. You can overcome even the worst dip. And that kind of a business is pretty easy. I like a lean labor model, which is important. Like I don't want a business where I have to have a huge, highly trained technical crew. Think in our business, like garage epoxy floors, just use an example. That's a popular space. A lot of people have gotten into that business and that franchise. There's 4 or 5 franchise brands. But you have to recruit and train talent at a fairly high level. It's not easy to teach people how to do that. And it's even harder to hold on to them. So a lean labor model means you have minimal staff and they're replaceable and recruitable. My Up Closets brand, if you bought an Up Closets, my guy in Charlotte, Cole Sossaman, that's opening up in January, has 1 salesperson and 2 part-time, who's a commission-based salesperson and 2 freelance cabinet installers he uses for his install crew, and they just fit his jobs in with theirs. And it's him. That's full staff. He could do $1 million in revenue with that one business without adding any more staff, like lean labor. That's a smarter business for today. So and that's a consultative sale, high ticket, high margin business. Our average closet's $4 or $5 grand. We do them from $2,000 to $10,000 closets. So we're pretty cost effective. It involves generating leads, going to a house, designing a closet, and it comes in 4 weeks, and we install it in a day. simple, repeatable business model that has a consultative sales element. You can do much higher revenue in those models. Consultative sales models would be like a CertaPro painting or footprints floors or floor coverings, budget blinds, any of the kind of kitchen businesses. That's like business where you have to go to somebody's house and give them a proposal. The other business I have is also truck based and lead labor, but it's a service model business, meaning you have a route or you set up appointments every day, and the technician on the truck, and I have one technician per truck, goes out and does 3 or 4 or 5 service appointments in a day. And that's Dryer Vent Superheroes. It's a dryer vent cleaning niche business. I like very niche businesses. It's a daily cash business. You might only do $800 or $1,200 a day in revenue, but you got a 40-50% gross margin in that business. And literally everybody who wears clothes is a customer of that business. You have a dryer, you need to have it cleaned once a year. That's just a cool, easy to scale, simple business. Great for owner operators. We love owner operators in that businesses. But that's my kind of sweet spot, or businesses like those.
Love it. What about on the franchisor side? What, with your experience, what are some of the unknowns for folks like me getting into this space that we should know about early on, so that we don't have a headache down the line?
The number one, that's a great question. Number one mistake is people don't understand that if you buy into that you're in the franchise business first and primary, you need a franchise admin, which is a mix of onboarding, coaching, training, and systems admin. The one kind of central person that systemizes the franchise system. And that's an important hire. And then you need to invest in operations, support, coaching, and training staff and marketing resources way before you have the volume of royalties to cover the expense. So people think, I'm going to get my FDD and I'm going to sell franchises, and that's all they think about. They don't spend nearly the amount of time learning the operations side of the business, and how that's the hardest part to learn. But brands that invest in that up front and have the capital to do that and hire the right kind of people do much better. Brands that sell 4 or 5 and then don't have their act together hit a wall pretty quick. But that's, like understanding how to have an admin, how to do onboarding, how to do coaching, how to do technical support, training, all kind of stuff, how to build culture. That's the stuff that people expect when they buy a franchise.
What about from a sales angle with your brands? What are the lead gen tactics that yield the most results for you? You guys paid ads, and that's how folks find you? Is it word of mouth, referral?
I'm a little bit of a rebel. Like I certainly buy into the Google universe and paid ads, and Google business directories are mission critical. I have a vendor that we use. I'm big on CRM systems. I think the technology stack you have is really important. I'm really preferential to a company called Workiz, WORKIZ. It's a service type competitor. It's the best bang for your buck and feature set today in the market. I've looked at every single platform, and that one just kills it. It's great. We spend money at the franchisor level on Google Business Directory setup and optimization for our franchisees. We provide local WordPress websites for each person. So those two things come as part of their technology and brand fee. Our guys pay a $500 fee that covers the CRM software, the Google Business Directory, and the local website. Which is really a nice package. If you had to buy Workiz yourself, you'd spend $800 a month. Then you can, at the franchisor, you can get the price down to something more reasonable.
Makes sense.
For us, I think you have to think about where people are. I do a lot for both of our businesses on something called a conversational model, which is a type of structured AI-driven ad that could be video, carousel. It's mostly on Facebook and Instagram, but it has a message or Facebook Messenger opt-in instead of a link to a website, a form. And so our customers chat with us because, half the customers are in the millennial or Gen Z category. They don't like phones. They don't like filling out forms. They don't want to go to your website. And so if you make it easy for them to get to a real person, you can unlock all kind of crazy performance. So in the first year, 60 or 65% of our jobs come from that. Then Google and the other organic stuff picks up. And then we use third-party lead aggregators and some direct mail. A lot of assertive in-market tactics, the normal stuff. In your space, think about like what 1-800 Got Junk did back in the day with their morning waves at busy
Yeah.
intersections, but all the other stuff that people have.
Yeah. The conversational AI piece of, I totally can see how that's what kind of what level of conversation can that AI agent have with a potential buyer of yours?
So it's not an AI agent. We use AI for the targeting and to build
Okay.
the personas out. I use real people to chat. That's the secret sauce.
Got it. Got
Like
it.
think of it
And
as a call center, but a person that's doing it on their phone texting versus
gotcha.
talking.
It's like a
That's
live
just
chat moment.
when you can get to a real person. Like if you and your wife are just finished dinner and she's wanting to redo the master closet because she's been looking at all the TikToks of all the closet reveals, and she
Yeah.
sees my picture of a before and after closet at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and it says message us for a quote, and she says, "Well, how much does one of these cost?" And our designer, who's getting paid a commission to work those leads anyway in Charlotte, it'd be Cole, my guy Cole. He'll chat back and say, "Well, I can give you a price if you take a picture of the closet that you want to redo and just
Yeah.
estimate the dimensions. They don't have to be exact. Just is it like
Yeah.
4 feet, 6 feet, whatever it is." And we use AI software to design closets, and we spit back 3 or 4 versions of that same closet in a minute or two. It doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
So your wife went from just being curious, all of a sudden she's got 3 or 4 designs with actual pricing. And
Yeah.
then we say, like, if you like this and that's in your range, I can come over tomorrow,
Yeah.
and we can sit. I can measure, and we can sit on the computer and design it for you in front of you. You can help us design exactly what you want and see what all the difference. And so that's pretty cool.
It sounds a lot high level, just from an ideology perspective, how we're trying to pursue the market with junk removal, right? You want a price and you want it now. And so we've built our website at least to speak to that, because there's a lot of junk removal companies that are super transparent on their websites, or even if you call, right, there's a lot of sales tactics around how you talk to a customer. And most of them really just want to get on site to evaluate your job and sell you while they're there, right? Once they're on site, higher close percentage, so on and so forth. So that's one of our angles, Thomas, with how we're going to market as a junk removal company against our competition, is we want to be the one that's super transparent about pricing and get you what you want now.
Yeah, that's smart. My dryer vent business, the model that my main competitor is a Dryer Vent Wizard. It's a Neighborly brand. It's a great brand. David Lavelle started that, I believe, in North Carolina, maybe in Raleigh or Charlotte. I'm not sure where it started. Great guy, like built it up to a big system, sold it to Neighborly. Their model is they come give you a quote, like the technician shows up and gives you an estimate, and you're thinking it's going to cost $100 or $150. The estimate's $600, and it just pisses people off. There's all kind of hidden fees. That's just their model, and our model is we don't have hidden fees. We're flat rate, like it's $149 or $159. If your vent goes out the side of the house, and if we have to get on your roof, it's another $50 or something, $60. Like that's fully loaded. There's no hidden fees. We use cameras. We do inspections. We use HEPA filters. It's a full and total deep cleaning of the whole system, no matter how long it is. And people really like that a lot. And then when we do a safety inspection, we'll say, look, I noticed that the tube on the back of your dryer is crushed and has a hole in it. I can take care of that for you. And your door outside is damaged. There's a bird nest in it. I can replace that. This is what that costs if you want to do it. I can replace your washer hoses and some other stuff on here. It ends up being the same $600 ticket or $400 ticket, but we earned it by earning trust. We built trust with the people, and they weren't forced to do it. It was just an optional thing. Because when you say, "Look, here's what you have," this tube's messed up, and here's what you need. People are like, "Oh, I need that. That's a good idea." They're not expecting you to sell them because you earned it by being. I think that's the right model.
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally, I get it.
But I've had to hire junk collection company. We flipped my daughter's house, and we used a lot of dumpster companies here and there. Tried to use some franchise ones, and if I could have gone on Facebook and just gotten an instant quote, and even booked time for you to drop off a dumpster or pick up stuff, and I could have sent you a picture of what I had, and you could have said, "Yep, that's $350 or whatever." I would have booked it. We call that a frictionless transaction. I think that's important. And service companies that understand that are going to mop up the ones that fight it, or that's good for me.
Well, it's a lot with the home service based business. It's not just junk
Yeah.
removal. A lot of folks don't think through that lens, and I don't want to say it's outdated because I feel like it's cliche, but a lot of home service based businesses are very difficult to do business with. I put 2 French doors in here in this home that I moved into earlier this year, and just finding a handyman to come and do that was a bear. And when I finally found folks, half of them weren't responsive, the other half were, but it took them 2 or 3 days to get back, and then another week to come out, and then another week to produce a quote. And I'm like, God, this is crazy. Even if somebody was mid level expensive up to like really expensive, if you got back with me like when I needed something and at least a rough estimate, and you were out the next day and you could schedule the job the next week, I likely would just get this done because my time is worth a lot more than me dragging this out for a month. So I think that's true for a lot of home service type brands and businesses, right? Handyman, roofing, gutter cleaning, window cleaning, junk removal, dryer vent cleaning. Like, I think it's just across the board.
We have this generational split. It's almost like it's diverse and polarized as Republicans versus Democrats. This younger group, this 45 and under group, and the 45 and older group, they don't talk the same language. They don't act the same. Their consumer interest in how they pick companies is different. My CMO is in her mid 20s. She's amazing. And she puts this picture up at training where she has a black and white picture of a woman talking on an old phone, like a corded phone, the normal kind of handset phone that I grew up with. And she goes, this is what you look like to your customer when you make them call you, old and dated. Like that's just be open to that. Or totally different ways people want to interact. And to capture market share today, you have to think along those lines and involve frictionless kind of things into the way you work.
Totally. Yeah. Well, this has been great, Thomas. I really appreciate the time. I would love to potentially do another episode or 2 with you. I just think you've got such a wealth of knowledge that a lot of folks could glean some information from. But we'll end it with this. If you could go back to your younger self, whenever that was, last year, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, and do anything differently or tell that younger self anything, what would it be?
Well, I think planning for the future is a little overrated. And I think what you do in your 20s, you won't remember when you're in your 50s. Nobody in their 50s can remember accurately what actually happened in their 20s. And the lesson is that that's an amazing decade to go for it. I tell people, start a business right out of high school, start a business right out of college. I think younger Gen Z people in general, I call them the jobs are for losers generation. I mean, they don't see the value in a normal job. They just don't, like, who would want to spend 40 hours a week when I could go do my own thing and hustle and make 6 figures? If they can, so do that. And my advice to myself would just be like, do more, take more risk. Don't be so worried about failing. Don't worry if you don't have the resources to do it. Just find a way to kind of make it happen.
Love that. I'm with you 100%. Well, Thomas, thanks again for joining. Where can folks find you if you even want to be found?
You can look me up on LinkedIn, Thomas Scott, Home Run Franchises. My website's homerunfranchises.com, T Scott at homerunfranchises.com. You can find me on TikTok, on Instagram. I'm all over the place. I do videos every day. So send me a DM or text message, email, whatever.
I certainly will be taking you up on that personally. So I appreciate it, Thomas. Well, this was great. And again, thank you for joining. And I'm sure you and I will be in touch very soon. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
All right.